Hey guys, Tina here and welcome to my monthly recommendations video. This group was created by Trina and Kayla Rain, and I will leave all the important information down below so you can go check it out and potentially join. Anyways, this month's topic is book one in a series that you either thought was better than the rest of the series, that got you into reading the rest of the series, or whatever. Just book one in the series, and I have quite a few of those because I read a lot of series. Basically, I think everything is a series these days, especially when you come to young adult and fantasy. So yeah, there's not a lot of option regarding that. But yes, I have a pile of books here that I want to talk about, so let's get into it, otherwise we're gonna be here forever. So the first pile of books that I have here is actually books one in the series, where, you know, I thought the book one was actually the best in the series, and I have three of these here. The first one is Written in Red by Anne Bishop, which is book one in the other series. This is an urban fantasy series about this girl called Meg. She's a blood prophet, and she was kept in this facility and basically abused and used for her prophecies so people could make money of her, and she escapes and ends up in a lakeside courtyard. And courtyards are places, because this is an alternate world to our own, and nature plays a very important part in this world. You know, it doesn't allow humans to abuse it as, you know, in our world. And anyways, these courtyards are basically sort of a go-between the human world and the natural world, and creatures like werewolves, vampires, other things live there, and Meg sort of fits in there, and she finds a family there and great friends and all that, and I love this series. There's a tiny bit of romance there. It's definitely nothing in your face. It just, you know, there is there, but it's, you know, just really, it's very well done, I think. Anyways, book one was definitely my favorite in the series. It got me started. And I did enjoy the rest of the series as well, don't get me wrong, but this one was my favorite. The same goes for Blood Song by Anthony Ryan, which is book one in the Raven Shadow trilogy. I loved the whole trilogy, but this one's definitely my favorite. It tells the story of Valen. He is a young boy when he's brought to this monastery type of facility by his father, and he's then raised there as a fighting monk, and we follow his story as he gets, you know, grows up and gets more involved in the world, when he learns more about the world. And it was really great seeing this story from his perspective, and it was actually quite a shock when I picked up book two and we see multiple POVs, and the story is a lot more fractured because of that. You know, keep jumping from one place to the other, and yes, you get a lot more answers and you get to see a lot more of the world, but it was such a shock, and I definitely, you know, I did like it once I got used to that, but it was definitely not as good as this one. And the last book that I'm going to mention in this segment is The Final Empire by Brandon Sanderson. This remains, I would have to reread them, and I will, but this, as far as right now, remains my favorite book in this trilogy. It's book one, yeah, obviously, and I really liked it. It tells the story of this world where people, they're slaves, and the ruling class, of course, there's ash falling from the sky, and people that can use magic in the shape of ingesting a metal, basically, and if they do that, you know, some can use different powers, some can only have one power, some can all, you know, use all of the powers. It's really a lot of fun, and I'm just doing it injustice just by talking about it here, but yes, definitely my favorite in the series. Then I have books one in series here, in which, you know, I thought the book one was great, but the sequels were even better. And the first of those is A Way of Kings by Brandon Sanderson, which is book one in his Stormlight archive. I still prefer book two in this series, and there are only three out, so we have a long way to go. But this takes place in a place called Roshar, where, you know, the humans are fighting Parshendi, which is sort of a different species of creatures, and this war has been going on forever, and we follow a bunch of characters, and it's just a really interesting world. I love all the characters, and just fantastic. I love these books so much. Then one that really got me excited was Assassin's Apprentice by Robin Hobb, which is book one in her Farseer trilogy. This is a short one, so, you know, it's sort of not really what these books are like, because the other ones are huge, but it introduces us to Fitz, and we follow his story as he grows up from a little boy into a young man, and all the adventure that he has to go through. He's the bastard son of the crown prince, and well, it's not really an enviable position, but I love this series. But book 2 is my favorite. And the last book that I'm going to talk about in this segment is Red Rising by Pierce Brown, which is book 1 in the Red Rising trilogy, and definitely not my favorite because The Golden Sun, which is book 2, is my favorite in the trilogy. This is sort of a sci-fi dystopian trilogy that takes place in our solar system. The humanity has evolved and it's basically divided into different levels, and Darrow is in the lowest one. He's one of the Reds, basically just a physical laborer, and he decides to fight the system, and he gets the opportunity to do that, and we see him do that throughout the series. The next pile of books that I have here is books 1 in the series, in which actually the first book was just as good as the rest of the series, and I love the whole series. And the first of those is Clockwork Angel by Cassandra Clare, which is book 1 in Infernal Devices. That is sort of a historical book that takes place in the late 1800s in London. Part of the Shadowhunter world, so I'm not going to say too much about it, but I love this whole series, far better than the Mortal Instruments in my opinion. And the next is another series that I really love, and that is the Glass Sentence series by S.C. Grow. I have the whole video and I will link it up here so you can go check it out. This is a middle grade series about Sophia Timms. She lives in this alternate world to our own. This event happened and basically flung all the continents and parts of the continents into different time periods. So, you know, one part is in the Renaissance, one part is in antiquity and things like that. And her parents were explorers and they disappeared, and she believes that they're still alive, so she decides to go find them. And Sophia is a great character. There's so much imagination in this trilogy, and I just loved it, the whole thing. I just really loved it. And then I have The Queen of the Tearling by Erica Johansson. I loved this first book, and I love the second one. The third one might be, you know, slightly less likable in my opinion, but that's strictly because of the end that I didn't like. But despite that, it didn't, you know, the end didn't take away anything from the quality of the book itself, and I just love it. This is about Kelsey. She's a young, very idealistic girl. She was raised to be the queen, and on her 18th birthday, her guards come to get her, and she's supposed to start ruling, and she is really trying hard to help her people, to be there for them, and to just make sure that they are well taken care of. Very idealistic, and definitely these books play with you and your expectations. So fantastic trilogy all in all. Then I have one book that sort of doesn't fit here because the trilogy is not done yet, but I've loved book 1 and I loved book 2, and I expect to love book 3 as well, and I'm talking about A Nevernight by Jay Kristoff. This is such a fantastic series so far. I love it. It tells the story of Mia Corvera. She is a young girl who wants to avenge her parents, and she was raised by an assassin, and she goes in book 1 to this assassin school. Just crazy. These books are hilarious. They have great footnotes. If you're skipping them, don't, because a lot of humor is there. They're very snarky. Mia is fantastic. Just love it. I just love these books, and I cannot wait for book 3. Really, is August here yet? Yeah, I cannot wait for it. So then I have books 1 in the series where I'm not yet sure whether or not I'm gonna like the rest of the series because, well, it's not nearly done. The first of those is A Lady Midnight by Cassandra Clare, which is book 1 in the Dark Artifices series. I'm really liking it so far. I also like book 2, and I'm likely to like book 3 as well. This is a Shadowhunter novel that takes place in Los Angeles. We follow the Blackthorns, which is this huge family of kids that are basically orphans, and they're just fantastic. A very diverse bunch of kids. I just love them, especially Kit and Ty, as you probably know by now because I talk about them all the time. Then I have Truth Witch by Susan Dennard. So far we have 2 books out. The next one, or the prequel one, comes out next month. And this is about 2 girls, 2 friends that are witches, and one of them is really one that would be very sought out if people knew about her. So they decide to go on a run, and just amazing things, you know, there's a lot of adventure. Their friendship is just terrific, and I'm really liking this series so far. Then I have Age of Myth by Michael J. Sullivan, which is book 1 in his First Empire trilogy. No, it's not a trilogy, it's a series. And book 3 is coming out very soon if you want to start this thing. This is about fairies and humans. Basically, fairies are considered to be immortal. They're supposed to be gods to humans. And then one day a human kills one of these gods and just craziness happens. I love the characters, I love the world, and there's this one fantastic female character that is just amazing, and I really love her. We're almost done, guys. The next book that I'm going to talk about is Arabella of Mars by David E. Levine. This is a historical, well, alternate history type of book about Arabella. She lives on Mars. Her parents have a plantation there, but she's sort of tomboyish, so her mother decides to take her to London and basically turn her into a lady. But while they're doing that, her father gets murdered on Mars, and Arabella is determined to go there and make sure that everything is okay with her brother and all that. And it's just an adventurous book, and I loved Arabella. I loved the whole setting, actually, and I have to get to book 2. And then the last book that I have here is one that is very popular on BookTube, and I'm talking about Every Heart a Doorway by Seanan McGuire. I'm actually not sure how many books there are going to be in this series. I'm pretty sure it's a trilogy, but I'm not sure. The last book just came out, I think. And this is a series of novellas, very short books, very enjoyable ones, very diverse, very whimsical and magical, just fantastic. And it tells actually the story of these kids that went through different portals, and then they had to return to our world, and they are finding it hard to be here. Some want to go back, some want to stay here, you know, just various situations. And they are actually, in this book 1, they are in this school for them, and they're sort of, you know, the school is sort of helping them cope with the situation. And I love this book so far, so much, and I'm really looking forward to reading the rest of them. I almost finished this video, but I remembered that I forgot one more book, and that is I Hunt Killers by Barry Lyga. I have been begging people to start reading this series, but nobody wants to do that. This is basically a murder mystery, psychological thing. It's a young adult book about this guy called Jazz. His father was the most famous American serial killer, and he was grooming Jazz to become his successor. And Jazz basically knows everything there is to know about how to be a serial killer. And when these now his father is in jail, and when these murders start happening, they're basically copies of his father's murders. He decides that he wants to solve them before people start thinking that he's actually the culprit. And I love this book, especially the first one in the series. It's fantastic. I love his struggles because he knows that he is capable of this, and sometimes he would watch humans and just, you know, think about how he would go about killing them, and that they would be perfect targets or things like that. I just love this book. Oh, such a great book, and I almost forgot it. How embarrassing that would be. But anyways, those are the books that I recommend to you. I've loved every one of them, and clearly otherwise I would have sold them by now. All terrific books, and hopefully you found something here for yourself. And thank you for watching this pretty long video, and see you in my next one. Bye.